Does Florida State really have a quarterback battle? I'm about to tell you why that's not really the case.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DJ Uiagalelei is just getting acquainted at Florida State, doesn't really know the offense, and quite honestly, Brock Glenn is not ready for primetime. And let's just be honest, quarterback is not easy. He's a sophomore. DJ Uiagalelei is a fifth-year senior. Hi, my name is Brian Smith, and this is Locked On Seminoles. Thanks for joining the show today. I am going to be talking about the quarterback situation, an interesting take that I heard on there's a potential quarterback battle. I do not buy it at all. So again, DJ's experience overall, even though he hasn't learned the offense yet, and Brock Glenn's inexperience, those three things combined are why I believe there isn't a real battle going on in Tallahassee. I'll go in depth on that. Please like and share this podcast. We are free and available wherever you get them, and free on YouTube as well. Part of the awesome Locked On Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. So let's just break this down. If you started somewhere else at any position, whatever football value you had, whether you were a guy that made it through high school, played college, played pro, I don't care what it was. When you're learning a playbook, you're going to be a little slower, not as efficient. There was an article on Noel Game Day, and it's a site I read quite a bit. They do a good job at talking about, hey, there's a battle here. There's a real battle here. I'm not buying it. I've talked to a few people around the industry in general, and, you know, take it for what it's worth. I'm not speaking to anyone in Tallahassee, but I don't see a sophomore who struggled mightily at the end of last year when he did play be a guy that's going to beat out a fifth-year senior. Now, I will note, DJ's experience and all that will eventually get him there, but I also note that right now he doesn't know the offense that well, so he's going to make some blunders. You can tell when Mike Norvell's in front of the microphone, he is doing everything in his power, quarterback or otherwise, not to mention specific names. All these coaches, in my opinion, this is 100% my opinion, are scared to death of the transfer portal and or their guys leaving. I'm sure they will all deny it, and coaches lie all the time, but I'm 100% in that bag. I don't think he's going to say so-and-so is a starter or anything else coming in spring. It's what everybody's done forever. There's just no way for coaches to win the battle by being honest. There's not. But there's no way in hell I'm buying this stuff, because once DJ gets it down, being a guy that's played at Clemson 3 years and played for Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, and Norvell's a really good play caller. They've got good guys around. Tony's a really good quarterback coach. They're going to be fine. It may not be perfection, and it's going to be a heck of a lot different than what we saw with Jordan Travis behind center at Florida State. But no, I'm not buying for 1 second that he's not. Point two on it, and this is still the biggest one, it's just a playbook, man. I talked about his experience and all that. When he gets to the end of spring, I bet you those kind of articles and those kind of comments will go away. I could be wrong, but he'll play better in the spring game than anybody else at the quarterback position. Like Luke Krummelhock is a kid that I know well, and I'm going to root for him like crazy because I just know him and his family. But like, he's a freshman. He's not going to be there. And Brock he wasn't even in the stratosphere at the end of last year. Why would anybody believe that either one of them, who don't have a lot of experience with it, and quite honestly, Luke has none with the playbook, is going to pass and get up to where even Brock is right away? That's hard. Maybe by the end of summer it's possible, but that's just hard. First-year quarterbacks are almost always terrible. Second-year quarterbacks, it's little odds and ends here and there, but by and large, being a top 50 quarterback based on stats is about all you can expect. Being in the top 25 to 30 as a sophomore, a true sophomore, which is what Florida State needs, let's be honest, that's not realistic. And then finally, it just comes back down to it. Brock, I'm just going to use him as the example because no offense to Luke, and I've seen him play numerous times. He has zero college experience, so I don't think he's a legit chance. And Brock Glenn, quite honestly, hasn't shown me anything. And a few people that I've spoken to that are more familiar with it than I don't like his chances of starting this year. So those are kind of the basics. Now, somebody might ask, well, what's the deal then? Why was this brought up? Because Brock's had some good moments, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's getting better. He should. He's been through an off season. He knows the playbook far, far more than DJ does, or if he doesn't, there's something wrong. And then finally, he's got more familiarity with the receivers. So lastly, before I get ready to turn this over to recruiting, here's the three again. DJ has played 4 years of college football. 4. 2, he does not know the playbook in the system and doesn't have all the fit with the receivers. And then finally, Glenn, and if you want to throw him in there, Luke Krumahawk, they don't have any experience. There is no way in heck they're going to just outright beat him out. I know coaches have to go out and say, everybody play good, all this to keep everybody happy, parents in particular. Believe me, that is a bleeding issue in college athletics across the board, is getting phone calls from parents if you're a college coach. Those usually don't go very well. But at the same time, that's just the reality. He's not, like, when you talk about Norvell, he's not going to give an update that is 100%. I would bet my bottom dollar on it. He can't. Either can any other Power 5 coach or Power 4, whatever it is, about the quarterback in particular. If your projected starter at quarterback transfers in the spring, the chances of you having a quote-unquote successful fall is slim to none. It is like if he gets hurt or something else, whatever the reason, doesn't matter the reason. If your starting quarterback is not the guy from game 1 through game 12, it's not going to go well 99% of the time. And I know there are a few outliers in the history of college and pro ball. That's great. That is not the norm. That is the exception. So keep that in mind. On the other side, I'm going to talk about recruiting. There's some news. There's a couple of kids that are either going to commit and or take visits. Some good, some bad news. I'm a little apprehensive right now on Florida State recruiting because it has been, quite honestly, a very, very trying time here recently. And I don't know what exactly it is, but some of these kids just seem to be putting off commitments, whether it's Florida State or otherwise. So we're going to talk about that next, right here on Locked on Seminoles. Have you ever had an issue getting tickets, whether it's a concert, whether it's a theater, whether it's some kind of opera, it can obviously basketball, football, whatever. I'm a guy that does things last minute a lot of the time when it comes to tickets because I got to make sure I can go with all the schedule I have. That's why the Gametime app is really cool. You should check it out, download it. Gametime allows you to get to where you need to go cheaper and quicker. You can type in Florida State, just as an example, pull up whatever events they have, Florida State football, whatever. It'll pull down the drop-down box, and then you can pick their next event, and you can see exactly where your seat would be. Another thing about it is last-minute deals. Save up to $60 if you get last-minute deals, sports, concerts, theater, etc., anything you want. You can also do it without all the extra fees that come in. This is something that drives me nuts. All-in pricing with Gametime is great. When you see the price, that's the price. There isn't 8 different things at the end they add to it to kind of lead you on and be a bait and switch. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's talk a little bit about recruiting for a moment. There are a lot of kids that, like I said just a few moments ago, that seem to be on the cusp of making decisions. One of the key targets for the Noles is Alvin Henderson out of Elba, Alabama. I am almost 100% certain he's going to pop for Auburn this week. I expect Florida State to continue to recruit him. He's a big-time player. He's not a kid that is going to, quote-unquote, just be done with recruiting. I've mentioned him several times on this show because I've seen him play live. I've seen him in different workouts. I've seen a ton of his video, and I got to know him a little bit. This is a big-time recruit. He had 61 freaking touchdowns last year. One season. And I do not care from the detractors. He played small school football. Durability, accountability, and consistent. He is an every down running back. 5'10", 197, and that dude is jacked. He is going to be ready when he comes in to a major college program, Florida State, Auburn, wherever it is, and end up being a big-time player. He's more than likely going to commit to Auburn this week. I still expect him to take all 5 of his visits, or at least 3. Florida State and Miami will be the other 2. He's got a visit lined up with the Canes on the 21st of June. Florida State will probably be the 14th if I was to guess. Bottom line, Florida State could use this kid. He's an every down back that has tremendous vision. He would be really good in any offense, to be honest. But I think he would do really well in Norvell's system, kind of like Tofili, where he kind of takes his time, and as soon as he sees the hole, he'll hit the juice. And he can run some people over, too. He's a little stronger than Tofili. That sense, at this stage of their career, in that sense, he's way ahead. But he's probably not top end as fast. So the question is, can Florida State get an OV out of him? I think they will. But again, probably going to be Auburn short term. Here's the other part of this. They've got all kinds of kids that are going to visit and have visited recently. I just want to mention a couple OVs and I'll go into some unofficial visits. But these are important in particular out of the ones that I could have brought up today. I wanted to mention these because Florida State needs this kind of player at certain positions. Here we go. Dontrell Glover. Langston Hughes, offensive guard. I saw him live at a tournament recently. He is a bull. If they can get him, and he's got a visit now for the 14th of June. 14th and 21st are going to be their big visit weekends, it looks like, this year. If they can get him, they're in business. Tavares Dice, committed to Auburn. That's another kid they would probably like to flip. They've recruited him hard. Don't forget about that. He's another Langston Hughes kid. It's kind of ironic. Florida State and Auburn doing a lot of battles here. But Dontrell would be a tremendous interior guy. If they got him to go with Solomon Thomas, the other kid they have committed, it's projected inside, that'd be as good a 1-2 punch on the interior as there is in the country. Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, all the schools that normally do really good O-line recruiting. Florida State starts recruiting like that, they're in business. They've had some pretty good offensive line recruits out of the high school ranks recently, but not enough of them. This would be a trend in the right direction. So that's somebody else to consider. Kevin Wynn, this is a kid I don't know as much about, but I do like the measurables. Defensive tackle. You've heard me say it 100 times. If I've said it once, Florida State has not recruited it well enough at either end or tackle, really, in the last 4 to 5 years. They've done okay. They've had some spots, but especially with that truly elite guy here and there, they've struggled. The other thing you can argue with is they haven't always done a good job with size. Now, here recently they have. They finally kind of got on that train, and this is another kid that fits the role of a big mauler on the inside that if you don't double team him, your quarterback gets hit by him, it's bad news bears. 6'2", 320 is what he's listed at. I'll say that again, 6'2", 320. Would you want your kid playing against that young man in high school? No. Kevin Wynn out of Greene County in Georgia. This is a rural Georgia kid that is probably not getting the attention he deserves, has the size you're looking for, and Odell Hagens, I talked about the other day on a podcast here at Locked On Seminoles. That's a really good freaking recruit, man. If you can get kids like this is traditional Florida State. Getting a big body like this and molding it maybe after a redshirt year, starts playing as a redshirt sophomore. He's the guy at nose guard. That's Florida State football based on when I was growing up. They got a lot of South Georgia, North Florida kids like that, and it worked out. Odell was a kid that kind of developed and moved himself into a D-tackle spot too. So that's something else to think about. A battle that I really am curious about, and I know the kid well, but I don't know where he's going to go. And he's going to visit Florida State 21st. There's that visit weekend again. That is Gavin Nix out of IMG Academy. He's a linebacker. I know Gavin well. I've interviewed him a handful of times. I think he's about as good a pure inside traditional linebacker that you're going to find. Finds the ball, gets to the ball, hits ball carrier hard. Downhill right now, and he can get there. Very sudden, and he's already 6'1", 230. I can't remember his exact height, but he's in that range. And quite honestly, he's very instinctive, and he's been coached well because he plays in IMG. And he's also battling with a lot of other great players to get to the ball carrier. They main most of the teams they play at IMG, if you know anything about high school football in the state of Florida or anywhere else. So keep that in mind. Gavin Nix is one of the best players in the state of Florida. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida, UCF, and several other schools would love to have him. He's originally from the greater Kissimmee area, and he's quite honestly a kid that I'm sure all the Florida schools would like to keep in the state. He's also teammates with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. They're really close friends. Florida State, to my knowledge, is not going to end up getting a visit on him, but I'm sure they're going to try. So they're close friends, and I'm sure they would like that opportunity. One other note on recruiting. Florida State's had a gazillion unofficial visits, and this is my concern. This is kind of random, but I've been trying to put this together for about 3 or 4 days. Why have they had so many unofficial visits, yet hardly any commitments for a while? And part of it, I will openly admit, I'm not a very patient person. And I'm being incredibly kind. I have zero. It's just true. I don't have any. I'm guessing many of you are the same. But with that stated, I was on the phone earlier today with a buddy of mine, John Garcia Jr. from Rivals, talking about it's crazy because there's not much going on. We got a couple of kids we expect to commit this week. It's not Florida State going to be the pick, but we also both agreed that within the next week to 10 days, it's going to be an avalanche. We hate it when this happens as recruiting analysts because you can't keep up with everything. You can't write everything doing a podcast because it happens in short order. But you got all these spring games getting ready to happen in the SEC and ACC, just talking about down south, plus UCF, et cetera. All these schools are going to have more unofficial visits, and many of them will be a second, a third, a fourth time a young man has been to a particular campus, Florida State or otherwise. The Noles only have like 4 commitments right now, but I would be very surprised if they were not at 6 or 7 by the end of, say, April 7th, 8th, about a week or so after you get into, May, first week of May, because all these visits are done. They visited Florida State or Georgia or whatever it is, or multiple visits. They'll have figured it out. And then part of that will also culminate in the official visit. Some will stick with just the Florida State commitment or whatever, and then you'll have some more information about them there. But it'll be very interesting the next month. It'll be hot and heavy. There'll be a ton of news, and it will be as random as it gets. This is the one thing I hate about the spring evaluation period that starts in May or the last week or so of April. I forget the date for the coaches, but they'll be back on the road right after the spring game. You just don't know when kids are going to pop sometimes because they do it on campus. They don't even intend to, but it's going to happen. Again, though, I expect 2 or 3 commitments by, say, about a month from now to 5 weeks from now. It's because of all the visits that Florida State's going to get. They got another 10 practices, including the spring game, so there's going to be more. Speaking of more, if you're really looking for something extra and you want to find out a better way to get an opportunity to learn a little bit more about sports and not use the same feeds, don't use Fox or ESPN like a lot of people do all day. They've got something else now called Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel for your everyday, and you can bring it to all the big stories without screaming at the TV because it's the same stuff that's going on. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, free on Amazon Fire's TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're going to talk about the grant of rights to wrap up the show today on the other side. And quite honestly, this is one of the randomest situations I've ever followed in my life, but it's a lot of fun. Stick with us here on Locked On Seminoles. Fire TV recently created TV channels that can deliver a supply of latest videos for your favorite sports brands, all for free. I just talked about some of that just a moment ago with Locked On Sports Today. This is something I wanted to talk about and kind of focus on today when I talk about this advertisement, because I just finally started looking at them a little bit, and you can get anything from news, you can get weather, you can get animals, you can get sports, anything that you can imagine, and it's free. Just say, Alexa, play Fire TV channels. There's an app for it. It's pretty simple. If you've got the Fire TV, that's fine. If you got the stick, that's fine. That's great. Also, if you haven't done it, talking about the TV or the stick, Fire TV is what I've used since 2016, and it's really easy. I've got it hooked up to the back of my television right now. I've used the same one for 8 years. I've had no problems. It's cheaper, and I use YouTube TV as my supplier. It's just over $80 a month compared to like my dad paying $150. I get the same stuff without all the price. So it's a lot easier. If you want to check it out, check more or get more at www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Last up, I just want to mention the grant of rights. This is a really unique deal because I'm sure most of you have seen the Clemson thing, and they're filing in the state of South Carolina. Each state is its own deal, it is so convoluted and so culturally different for every single state on what they expect and how their laws are connected, even if they're connected to each other physically. Like South Carolina and North Carolina right next to each other, but culturally they're quite a bit different. That ruling that's going to go for ACC or against them with Florida State, if it's in Florida, it's important. If it's in North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. It's the same deal with Clemson. And the way they're taking shots at them, I'm getting this feeling, and maybe it's just brazen, but the Warriors for both Florida State and Clemson are pretty confident this is going to end up in their favor in some capacity. I don't know if this will go all the way through. My guess is the ACC would rather save face at some point if they are going to lose and just cut a deal. I have no clue. None at all on when it will be. I know everybody wants to know when, but I can guarantee you that you're not going to just talk like this and come out like this for fun, a second school. You're not going to put your boosters and all your fans in an excitement mode. Hey, we're going to go to the SEC or the Big Ten, whatever, and make this statement and make this progress with suing the ACC just for fun. To me, once that came out, as goofy as it may sound, the more I look back at it, Florida State is leaving the ACC. Now, I firmly believe they will. I don't think Clemson would have went in unless they had spoken a lot with the brethren in Tallahassee and said, hey, what do you think? What are we doing? I'm sure both sides between Florida State and Clemson are working together, come up with ideas, and they both have a lot of interesting points. I'm not going to go down that path of getting into the subpoints. I've read them. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but it looks like to me that the ACC didn't dot their I's and cross their T's as well as they should have. I don't know if it's good for Florida State or Clemson or how long it would take, et cetera, because we don't know what the numbers would be, how much they would lose out, all those things. They're going to have to get loans. It's complex beyond complex. But all I'm saying is I do not like it for the ACC long term. And my guess is within 3 to 5 years, we'll have Florida State in another league. That stuff takes a while. Even if it was announced tomorrow, it wouldn't be Florida State in 2024 in a new league. They already got the schedule set and most of that stuff for next year, et cetera. It'd probably be 27 or 28, I would think, at the earliest. Something like that could happen. Football moves very slowly. Remember, they got schedules set for years. They have all kinds of things. They've got rivalries that are in tow within conferences, without a conference. There's a lot of complexity to that. So you got to look at a lot of different things, venues included. But again, I'm not a guy that likes to make a lot of predictions, but I think, 5 years, give or take, Florida State's probably going to be outside of the ACC. And I mean, literally on another field of says SEC on it. That's my guess. So with that, please like and subscribe this podcast. Please check it out wherever you get your podcast for free and on YouTube. We are part of the awesome Locked On Network, your team every day. Everybody have a great one.